This is the official EFL podcast with Mark Clement.
Hello everybody and welcome to the official EFL podcast with me, David Prutton, in for the globe-trotting Mark Clement this week, which has got me off the subs bench and playing for the first team in what is set to be a jam-packed episode. Burnley's Jack Cork will be here fresh from their promotion celebrations at the weekend that crowned a truly remarkable season in the Sky Bet Championship.
It was just such a great feeling to have that relief. And I think other players, the younger players whose first promotion this is and going to the Premier League for the first time, it's just a sense of excitement and just they're just not sure what's going to come ahead. And the manager has obviously achieved his first promotion as a manager, so it's a lot of different feelings for a lot of different people here.
I'll be joined by the EFL's Chief Operating Officer Nick Craig to continue a conversation we had recently at the Match Experience Fans Forum, all about the behaviour of fans in our football stadia.
Our clubs have worked really hard to deliver an environment for all, and what we want our supporters to have a fantastic time when they turn up at our matches. But what we don't want them to do is to cross the line into dangerous and illegal behaviour.
And last, but very much not least, Jobi will be here to cast his expert eye on all of the biggest stories across all three divisions this week on the official EFL podcast. Well, it's been a busy and celebratory weekend if you're of a Burnley persuasion, back in the big time at the first time of asking. 5 more points would see them crowned champions. A key part of that has been club captain Jack Cork, who I'm delighted to say is with us now on the official EFL podcast. Jack, how's the head?
Yeah, it's all right. It was strange having a game on the Monday. I mean, we all wanted to enjoy the Friday night as much as we could, and we had a good night. But the manager made sure there was no drinking on Saturday. But yeah, we had a good night Friday. I mean, it was amazing in front of the fans. It's such a great experience, and yeah, just great to top it off with a win against Sheffield United on Monday as well.
Is it relief? Is it a job well done? What's the overriding emotion over the course of the weekend?
Yeah, I think a lot of different players have a lot of different feelings. I think for me personally, it's just relief and just the sense of just accomplishment after going down last year. I mean, it was so disappointing for everyone. So to go back up was just the main thing I had since I signed the contract back in the summer was to try and get promoted again. It's just massive to get that off my chest, but just get that weight off my shoulders and just it was just such a great feeling to have that relief. And I think other players, the younger players whose first promotion this is and going to the Premier League for the first time, it's just a sense of excitement and just they're just not sure what's going to come ahead. And the manager has obviously achieved his first promotion as a manager. So it's a lot of different feelings for a lot of different people here.
You mentioned about the younger players. It's something that you've experienced in your career before. Does it feel different as a slightly older player when you get the chance to really enjoy it and process the hard work that's gone into it and what it means to everybody?
Yeah, it's been a strange year. I mean, we didn't start the season great, and it's just I just kept saying, as long as we're not losing games, we were drawing a lot of games at the start of the season. As long as we're not losing, we're picking up points, and we've only lost 2 games all season. So it's been as an older player, just trying to keep calm really throughout the season and keep everyone level-headed and keep everyone going. And for me personally, that the feeling is a little bit different. I went up with Southampton about 10, 15 years ago, and that was just mind-blowing. The last game of the season, the fans were on the pitch. It was crazy. I just didn't know what was going to be coming in the Premier League. So excited, and this has just been a bit more of a, thank God we've done it. Do you know what I mean? Just the fans deserve it, the players deserve it, everyone that went through what we did last year. I mean, it's just that last day of the season, the feelings and emotion going down on the last day was brutal. It was I don't know. I was trying to watch the crowd. I was trying to watch people do numbers. It was people cheering that Brentford might have scored or something. It was crazy. And then just the deflation. Everyone, all the families were at the game at Newcastle, last game of the season, and you just felt like you let them all down. So to get promoted with the same team, the same fans behind us is just an amazing feeling.
Of course, the tricky thing with being a member of a family with a footballer in it, Jack, of course, is that they have to deal with the lows as well as the highs, don't they? You talk about last season going down with Burnley. You've talked about just this weekend going back up with the same club. How tough is it for friends, family, loved ones to be able to kind of be on that same roller coaster, which they've got no control of whatsoever?
Yeah, it's tough, especially now. I've got my oldest child's 9 years old, so like last year, they're so into the match attacks cards, into FIFA, into watching football, and all they do is talk about football and stuff like that. So when the last game that didn't happen, my wife dropped my son off at school, and like the first thing one of the kids said to him was, "Hi, your dad got relegated,"
Oh
and he
my
was like
word.
gutted, bless him. Like, so they're just little things like that. It just affects them. It's just going from the excitement of thinking, "Oh, we can stay up here last game of the season," to the complete just letdown of it all. The whole day and the build up, and just the disappointment of letting people down. It was just horrible. So yeah, just little things like that. Obviously, it took me a week or so to sort of get over it, but after that, I was excited for the next season, and and luckily enough, it's gone as well as it has. So,
And obviously, a big part of that is Vincent Kompany, the standards that he's set, the thought processes that he's put in place. I watched, I think it was on Burnley's official YouTube channel, where it showed his first meeting with you all, coming in and explaining himself and describing what was going to happen. I mean, it almost had me looking for a brick wall to try and run through to come and join in, because it just sounded amazing. And he talked about the older players like yourself, and he talked about the younger players and standards being set. Just give us an inkling of what he's like as a person and what he's like as a manager.
yeah, well, obviously, some of the older lads here have played against him previously in the league, and he's had the better of us a lot of times. So it's nice to see someone as experienced as him and as good as a player as him coming into the training ground. And I think it's just helped us all buy into it, the standards that he's had at Man City and the standards he's had throughout his whole career. Like you said, that first team talk he said, it was like, oh, it might take us a while to get into it, but by the time 6 months comes, Christmas time comes, we'll hopefully all be settled. You'll know the ways to play the way we want you to play, and everything he said in that meeting has come true. It's strange. I mean, like you said, that meeting, it just got everyone really fired up. He's really good at talking to people, especially in big groups, and he gets everyone on side.
Is there an element of, I was trying to work out who was the good cop, who was the bad cop between him and Craig Bellamy? Could you shed any light on that?
Neither of them. I'm not sure what I was expecting from Bellas, because I played him at Olympics, and he wasn't bad cop then either, and he's not. He's been not been bad cop at all really since he's been. He's been really good. Like, he's not. I can't remember him having a go at anyone really. He's just been really like trying to help everyone develop. I think that's the main thing they want to do with the players we've got, and sort of the age of the players in and around the team. They want to help them develop and become the best version of themselves they can be, whether that's on the pitch or off the pitch, and they're massive on just helping people grow, and that's sort of helped a lot of the younger players we've had.
I'm always keen to stress when we talk about Burnley, especially more so this season, because obviously Vincent Kompany's come in. It's been a different way of playing football. There's been a lot of different personnel. But having been at the club for the length of time you have, there's an indelible Sean Dyche mark on that place, isn't there? And I'm intrigued to know from your point of view of seeing both managers up close. It's a different way of doing it this season, but the achievement still stands, doesn't it? That consistent year-on-year output that Burnley had in the Premier League, the fact that Vincent's taken them back up. Are you quick to stress and remind people just what has gone before at this wonderful football club?
Yeah, no, I think the current gaffer knows that he doesn't want to lose what we had previously. I mean, what Sean Dyche did with his football club was amazing. I mean, he had two promotions on 93 points once as champions, got the club to 7th twice in his career, got European football for the football club. I mean, it was an amazing achievement, and what got us there was a really great group of lads and a really strong work ethic. And one of the things that the manager, when he first came in, said, we didn't want to lose that. I mean, like, you can play all the nice football you want, you can play stuff like that, but you need to have that aggression, you need to have that sort of winning mentality that you're not going to let the standard slip. And I think that was one of the things he was massively keen on keeping. And I think that's one of the things that us as older players, me, Barnsley, Johan, Charlie, just any of the older lads that have been here, we've got to try and keep those standards of the work ethic.
Can it be a bit bittersweet given what's happened with players moving on that you've spent a lot of time with?
Yeah, it's hard sometimes because a lot of them are really close friends. I mean, it's just that Westy went to America recently, Louts, Tarks, a lot of Aaron Lennon, like I don't know, about 20 lads moved on from last year, and you're really close to all of them. I used to go into spend a lot of time with them. I spend an hour in the car on the way in, an hour in the car on the way out of them, and yeah, it's sad because we shared a lot of good times together, but the group was getting older and older, and a lot of us were over 30 years old, and unfortunately that is football. That's football, and business wise, as someone who owns a football club, you need to look here and maybe change the way you go at things. And I think the way they've done it here has been good.
And allied to those older players, there's been some cracking young players that have been on show this season, Jack. The likes of Nathan Teller, Anna Sorori, Manuel Benson, Taylor Howard-Bellis. There's a real kind of broad cross-section of what Vincent Kompany's gone for. I mean, take someone like Nathan Teller. I mean, did he even think he had that many goals in him?
I think he's more surprised at the amount of headed goals he's got, I think. But, yeah, it's been amazing. A lot of the players we signed, I don't watch much Belgian football. I don't watch much sort of development football. So it's when we signed a lot of players, I wasn't 100% sure on how good they would be. But it's the lads that have come in. He said Nathan Teller, Benson, all the lone boys, Ian, Tails. Basically half the team. I can name them all. They've been brilliant. They've been keen to learn. They've been respectful. I couldn't speak any higher of them throughout the season. When things haven't gone their way, they've just got on with it. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you come off, you're not happy. They've just come in the next day and wanting to work and learn. And it's been a real good group that I've been proud to work with all season. So
it's funny, isn't it? And I kind of experienced this the older that I got. Do you feel like an older player? Are they coming to you and asking you questions, and you kind of sat there thinking, "Hang on, oh, actually, I am in my 30s. That's why they're talking to me about stuff like this."
I didn't feel like that last year because obviously everyone was the same age. But there's been such a big jump from everyone being the same age to now being 33, and then everyone being 20, 21 years old. It's strange. It's one of those. It's real strange. But yeah, the conversations have changed. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like the way that the younger lads do talk to you at times, and you think, oh God, like I better answer this as an adult, really, rather than like mess about all the time. So, yeah, it's been fun in that sense. Just it's different. It's probably the first time in my career I felt like an older player. Yeah.
And the thing is as well, I mean, you look at the fitness levels, you look at the shape you're in, you look at the games that you've had under your belt this season. You must feel fantastic on top of it all.
Yeah, I feel great. I wasn't sure how it'd be in the Championship, and I felt fine. Yeah, I felt good. I think it's helped us having a lot of the ball at times and having a lot of people sort of around you for second balls to help win and keep hold of the ball. So yeah, it's been enjoyable, and I think when it's enjoyable, it makes it easier to run, doesn't it? So
the thing is as well, when people talk about the change in style, your career predominantly has been at places that enjoy playing with the football, isn't it? So it's not like you suddenly were at Burnley for a portion of time, then this magic way of playing football was invented. Because as you quite rightly say, keeping hold of the ball is quite a nice privilege to have, isn't it? And to be involved in a team that's possession-based, especially for your game, will it fit you like a glove?
Yeah, I came through, like you said, playing football. All my loans sort of were at teams that tried to play football, and yeah, I really enjoyed that. But it did shock me out. I did really enjoy the way we played at Burnley for the 4 or 5 years in the Premier League, and the way we set up. We were just so confident in the way we'd approach games. Like we didn't play football all the time, but when we did, we could do it. And we just knew that the physicality and the fitness of us would wear teams down. We'd go into games and knowing that people didn't want to play us, and it was a great way of playing. But like you said, this way of possession football in a league like this, in so many games, when you need to sort of look after the ball and look after your legs, it's really suited the season for us.
So 33, as you say, there's plenty of life in not so the old dog yet, but it'll come to a stage when you do think about beyond playing. Is coaching, is being on a staff, is something like that what floats your boat?
I'm not. I've sort of thought about it. Me and Barnsley, we did our B license this sort of about December time, and we really enjoyed doing that. I'm not sure if it's something I want to go into just yet. I think I'd like to have a little bit of time off from football when I do retire. I think finally have some weekends. I don't think I've had a weekend free since I was about 7 or 8 years old. So I will try and have a bit of time off, and then maybe I will try to come back to football in some way or other after that. So.
And we're sat here just after Easter, looking towards the end of the season. 5 points is the total that will get you the title. Has it flown by so far, the year?
Yeah, in some ways it has. Some ways it hasn't. You said that talk that the Gaff had in the Huddersfield game, the first game of the season. It seemed like a long time ago. It's in that way it seems like a long time ago. But just it has gone quick. It's hard to explain because it has been fun, but it's been hard at times as well. But yeah, I've really enjoyed the season. It's been great. I learning new things as my age, older player. I've continued to learn and see new things that I've never seen before. So it's been really interesting for me. Yeah.
Now, Jack, I'm keen to stress that whoever's listening to this podcast, whether it's a younger footballer trying to make it in the game, whether it's someone even younger than that with aspirations of being a professional footballer, the long careers come from consistency of approach, don't they? They come from being able to, day in, day out, week in, week out, season over season, get to a certain standard, maintain that standard, because there is an element where we look at the generation of things clipped up on Instagram, on TikTok, of outrageous skills and technique. But what's been the key to your career? Has it been the devotion to the actual craft and the professionalism side of it?
Yeah, the hardest thing I've found is consistency in your own performance and results. I think it's hard to, when you have a bad performance or a good performance, then repeat it, and then obviously after a bad performance to follow up a good one, and then after a good one, the opposite. You've got to keep going and keep going, and it has, especially in the Premier League, when there's no trophy, there's like nothing, there's no medals to be had when you're staying in mid-table or trying to fight relegation. To then finish that season and think we've got to do this all again and do it again and do it again for 10 years. Like we did that constantly. It was hard to keep doing that, but I just think you're never too old to stop learning either. I think the different styles I've played in over my career and different ways I've seen football, it's been so interesting to see the different ways you can win games, and there's no right or wrong way. There's so many different styles, and they all have their own way of working. And the one thing that I've learned from Vincent Kompany is the analysis for other teams before games has been amazing. I've never seen it to this level before, and the way he prepares for games is really, really impressive. Yeah.
So you'll be back at it, back in the Premier League come the start of next season. A, are you looking forward to it? B, how much downtime do you afford yourself in the summer?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, we've got a long time off because obviously our season finishes before the Premier League, and the Premier League starts later. So we've got a big block of time until the next season starts. So I'm going to have to look after myself, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I thought I didn't think I'd be back in the Premier League after last season. To be honest, I thought I've managed to hit 300 Premier League appearances. Is massive.
It's a phenomenal achievement. That's so. Yeah, I mean, congratulations for that, mate. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers, but yeah, I just thought that was me done really. So to have another crack at it at 33, 34 would be amazing, even if it's just trying to help people develop. I know we're going to bring a lot of players in probably, so just to help people, and if they need to help develop and help get used to the league, then hopefully I'll be there to help people.
Well, Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure to see the team over the course of a season, seeing your role in that and the time that you've spent with us. You've been a wonderfully gracious host with some really key insight into possibly what makes a footballer spend so much time at the very top level. I'm sure at some stage you'll all be able to have a massive blowout and have a really good celebration party. When that happens, we wish you all the best with it. 5 more points would see you as champions. But for today on the official EFL podcast, thank you very much, Jack Cork.
Cheers, Pros. Thank you very much, mate. Cheers.
The official EFL podcast with Mark Clement.
Okay, up next on the official EFL podcast, I've got the pleasure of the company of the EFL's Chief Operating Officer, Nick Craig. We're going to talk about a debate we had on the Match Experience Fans Forum just a couple of weeks ago regarding fan behaviour inside stadia across the EFL. First and foremost, Nick, hello, good to see you, my friend. Great to catch up.
Hi, David. Thanks for having us on.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, for the people that weren't watching that live Match Experience Fans Forum, what were the key components of what we were discussing with regards to, as I just said, the fan behaviour inside this stadium?
So we've always said that enjoying a fantastic atmosphere at our EFL matches, it's really important for the match day experience. Our clubs have worked really hard to deliver an environment for all, And what we want is we want our supporters to have a fantastic time when they turn up at our matches. But what we don't want them to do is to cross the line into dangerous and illegal behaviour. Towards the end of last season, we saw some challenging incidents, which we really do not want to see repeated. Our clubs, having invested significant amounts of time and effort in creating that vibrant atmosphere, we now need fans to play their part in terms of the way they behave once they're inside the ground. So there was a lot of discussion around some of the work that's been undertaken by the EFL, working in partnership with a number of different agencies, and also by the clubs themselves, working in conjunction with local authorities to try and ensure that we are creating that vibrant atmosphere, but in the right way. And we now need fans to play their part as well in terms of that, because we do work to this principle of love football, protect the game. What we want is we want to enshrine this principle that the pitch is for players and the stands are for supporters.
The key thing that comes out of that as you're talking about it is there's parameters, there's guidelines, there's rules, there's laws, there's the approach of the EFL and as you say about protecting the game. It's got to be bought into, hasn't it, by the fans? And by and large, over the course of what you've seen this season, and maybe even what you saw over the Easter weekend, are you seeing tangible results with this, do you feel?
Yes, we're still in the process of trying to create a wide body of data of incidents that do occur. So we've put a lot of effort into that this season. And obviously it takes time to gather a comprehensive database. But already we have seen some fantastic examples of the way in which fans can celebrate with their team, with their players in the right way at times of what are truly celebratory moments. For example, I was watching the other night when Burnley played away at Middlesbrough. I know Middlesbrough fans won't thank me for this, but Burnley did secure promotion that night, and all of the Burnley fans stayed in the stand. It allowed the players to go up to the Burnley fans, to stand there, to soak in the atmosphere, and more importantly, to celebrate with their fans. Some of those shots of Vincent Kompany stood on the pitch just taking it all in. Let's put it this way. If those fans had come onto the pitch, for example, if there had been smoke bombs or flares thrown or anything like that, that would not have happened. Those fans would have lost that opportunity. And we look at it in the sense that we want those opportunities for the supporters. It what makes the EFL the absolutely fantastic competition, that closeness to the players that our clubs help create, and that's really what we want to see. We don't want to see the repeats of mass pitch invasions that we saw at the end of last season, because what actually happens in the context of a mass pitch invasion is that many people are on there in a celebratory way. They want to do it in the right way. But the fact is, it is a criminal offence. But what it also does is it masks the behaviour by some of those individuals who do want to cause trouble, who do want to climb on the goalposts and break them, or, God forbid, unfortunately, as we have seen, assault players, assault other supporters, assault stewards. And that's where it crosses the line. It's really bad. So even though you think you're going on for the right reason, the fact is it can mask really poor behaviour. And that's what we do not want to see again. So more of the Middlesbrough Burnley celebrations post-match and none of the Accrington Bolton type Papa John semi-final stuff.
I think we saw as well when we were chatting to everyone that was getting involved in that fans forum, Nick, was the fact that we heard from stewards, we heard from supporters' bodies, that there was a general acceptance and a want, wasn't there, to make sure that what you're saying is the norm, is the way to go about celebrating football matches. And I'm not saying for 1 second we take away the passion, we take away everything, as you say, that makes the EFL what it is, but there's so many people involved in making sure that all goes right, and listening to the safety officers, listening to the stewards, listening to people that are employed there to try and maintain some form of order. It's a tough job as it is without all of the fans buying into it, isn't it?
Well, that's right. It's why we've made fans consultation at the heart of what it is that we're doing. So actually that event was run in conjunction with Football Supporters Association. So Kevin Miles was there in the introductory session with me, and he was really pleased about the fact that what the EFL has done is put fans at the heart of solving the issues, not just viewing fans as the problem. And that's got to be right. We wanted to listen to the fan groups so that we can understand how we can engage with supporter bases to properly understand what it is that they want, but also how we can get these key messages across. So it was really important to work with the Football Supporters Association. The clubs themselves, they've put in a fantastic amount of effort with their local authorities. So their safety advisory groups, their local police forces. We even have West Midlands Police along there on the evening talking about the work that they do with their local clubs as well. At the end of the day, though, what we have got to do is we have got to identify and deal with those that do cross the line and take their level of behaviour to what is unacceptable, because these are criminal acts. And so the clubs have also invested a significant amount of effort in terms of identifying and then following up and dealing with offenders. One of the most heartwarming stories on the night, I suppose, was the young gentleman from Portsmouth who came along to talk about his past in terms of his poor behaviour at football grounds, who's now actually attended a course run by the club, Restorative Justice, which is another area that we've been working on quite heavily, and talked about how he has turned around his behaviour, is now actually working with the club's community scheme in order to try and help spread that message as well. So there's some really good stories out there. We just need to make sure that we're hitting home with the key message around loving football, protecting the game.
And I suppose the key thing as well, given how many people watch football, how many people turn out to games across the footballing pyramid, it's something that we're all very rightly proud of, isn't it? The sheer volume of supporters we get through the door. It's the minority that can be drawn attention to rather than the vast majority of fans that turn up, love the game, enjoy it how they see fit in a very convivial and kind of inclusive way. And it's the small factions, the small pockets that not necessarily ruin it for everyone else, but then cast aspersions on the rest of the match day going public, don't they?
I think that's right. And the clubs are working hard to make sure that they can identify those people and deal with them. As I said before, these are criminal offences. We don't want football fans to come to games and then go home with a criminal record that can have real life consequences for them in terms of their employment, their mortgage, or things like that. That is a really bad situation for people to get to. They've got to understand that the way to celebrate and support their team is by doing so in the right way from the stands. No smoke bombs, no pyrotechnics. Stay in those stands, support the team in that way, and so we can enjoy some of those fantastic scenes. We heard stories about the Papa John's final, and there were some smoke bombs that were let off during the course of that final, and we heard here at the EFL about some young children who were in the same area as those who were in tears. What a fantastic day that was going to be for those fans in terms of their support for their team in Bolton Wanderers on a fantastic day out at Wembley, and to have that day spoiled by the minority that think that the taking of smoke bombs into games somehow adds to the atmosphere. Well, for those people, it didn't. It effectively spoiled that day for them. So yes, the minority are the ones that we need to listen to us and understand how it is that we need them to celebrate their team, support their team in the right way, so that the overwhelming majority of the supporters have a fantastic time.
I think it's safe to say that the approach from the EFL is both categorical and very, very black and white in the sense of what is acceptable, what isn't acceptable, and it's the type of action being taken that I think we're all very, very pleased and welcoming, given how much we all love going to watch football. Just to end on a lighter note, what we've seen from the season so far, we've just finished Easter. We've seen a wonderful Carabao Cup final. As you say, results-wise, for the Papa Johns, we saw an emphatic Bolton Wanderers win. The playoffs will be here before you know it. Another cracking season of EFL football, you'd have to say, Nick. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's put this into context as well, David. We're probably expecting somewhere in the region of about 20 million people through our turnstiles. And we're looking at in a season, maybe 2,000 incidents. So we know that the vast majority of our fans are out there absolutely enjoying the football that the clubs are putting on there. There's still a few twists and turns to go, I think, with this season as we move into the business end of the season. Obviously, we're all building up to that first weekend in May when a lot is going to be decided in terms of promotion and relegation before we then move on, of course, to the excitement of the playoffs. And I'm still not sure, sat here today, which teams are going to be in the playoffs or not across each of the divisions. They're all so tight at the moment, aren't they?
It's a wonderful way to end a footballing season. I've always felt that crowning glory at Wembley, and obviously year on year, I get the chance to see you in the flesh, Nick. So I look forward to that, and I'll see you then.
Absolutely. Thanks, David.
The official EFL podcast with Mark Clement.
Okay, helping me mop up an eventful Easter weekend is an EFL legend with nearly 700 games spanning over 2 decades with 8 different clubs, throwing 32 international caps for Jamaica and a voice as smooth as silk. It's Jobi McAnuff. Hello, Jobi. How are you?
Good morning, David. I don't know what has happened over the weekend, but you've never been this nice to me before. So it's a nice start to the pod.
It's asking you massive favours. That's what it is. I know how to work it. That gets you right on side. Do you have a good Easter weekend? Busy for you, wasn't it? You spent a lot of time up north.
Yeah, we've been on the road, but again, this time of the season is what it's all about, really. We've had some brilliant stories to follow. Obviously, the main one, certainly in the Championship, Burnley. So absolutely brilliant to be able to be up at Middlesbrough on Friday night to see them gain promotion. They've been absolutely incredible this year. Always a joy to watch. And I think for us covering the games, it always adds a little bit extra to it, and we're actually able to be there and enjoy the atmosphere, and hopefully that comes across to everybody at home. And then obviously back to Turf Moor on Monday again against a very good Sheffield United team who were hampered, of course, by a sending off, and again Burnley showing their class in the second half. So yeah, great couple of days on the road and a little bit of family time, trying to fit the family around work at this time of the year, which I'm sure you know all about. Yeah.
Did you were there on Friday, of course, as you said. Did you see a more relaxed Vincent Kompany finally? Because we've spoken to him a lot over the course of the season, haven't we? He's meant business every single time. There might be a smile here and there, but that man has had a vision. He's had an aim. He's had a motivation with Burnley. They've got there as the first portion of promotion. Was the chance for him to relax a little bit?
I think I saw a glimmer of relaxation for about 30 seconds after the final whistle had gone and he was over by the crowd. And I think you could just see him taking it all in and obviously appreciating what they had done. But the biggest thing that struck me over the last few days and getting the opportunity to have a chat with him after games, which is absolutely brilliant for us, is that he's pretty much, he wants to go and win the league. He's made that really clear, but he clearly is already looking at next season. What do I need to do to make this team better? He's got this big thing of saying, they're not first, they're 21st. They're the next team, going up in terms of the Premier League, and he always wants to go up and build and be better. So again, I think it gives you a little snapshot into management life as well. Even through those incredibly high moments and great achievements, there's always something that's coming, next. And I think I've certainly seen that. He didn't even give him a day off after Friday, which was incredible. But that's the difference. I think, you look at what he's achieved, you look at those top level elite, we call it elite mindset, I suppose, that there's always the next challenge, always the next thing that they need to go and conquer. And I certainly feel that's where he is at the moment.
5 more points sees them crowned champions. Is it a case of when, not if, for you, Jobs?
Yeah, I think it's been like that for quite a while now, I've got to say. And listen, they've been the standout team by a long way, I would say, in the Championship this year, even earlier in the season where they weren't necessarily winning games, but they were absolutely dominating them. I think they were just working out a way, in terms of how do we go and really hurt teams. And I think that's the biggest thing I've really loved about watching Burnley. They keep the ball. Yes, they want to have possession and dominate games, but they've found that cutting edge. They've found that threat in behind. And that's what makes them so hard to play against. You've seen teams come and try and press them high, and they're not afraid to bypass that and go over top with the runs like Tellers, Rory, Emmanuel Benson, one-on-one opportunities, been absolutely brilliant. And then at times when they do get in the lead, that's what's really difficult because they just pull you apart. They're so good with the ball. And there's just been so many brilliant aspects of their all-round play this year. And they've been absolutely brilliant.
So what helps them stay up then? I know they've been a dominant side in the Championship. We know that there's quite a sizable gap between that and the Premier League at the moment, but there are examples of teams that have gone up and consolidated, aren't there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had a little touch on this with Keith Andrews the other day. When you look at some of the other teams that have gone up, Leeds United, for example, who were a really possession-based team, as well as that intensity and the press that clearly was a hallmark under Bielsa. They had Patrick Bamford that first season, who was absolutely brilliant. And I think goals, again, from my experience of going up, and we had Adam Lafondra, who was a great impact substitution in terms of coming on and getting goals that way, but probably starting games, you're not going to be in certainly controllers of many games as Burnley have been this year. And there are times where you have to be able to just take that one opportunity or two opportunities because they are fewer and far between. And again, you do get hurt with better quality when you do make that step up as well. I think you look at Fulham again, Mitrovic, Ivan Toney, I spoke about at Brentford and the impact that he's had. I think defensively, you look at that back four, they have a Knight, Matsson's on loan, Bayer, Harwood Bellis all on loan. So again, that is going to be an area that they're going to have to go and strengthen for sure. And I think certainly if they can do that, they've got the style. It's about just trying to get the players now. And I think a real bit of Premier League pedigree and experience, I think, really would help them.
I suppose key in that is that massive word that can make or break a season is recruitment. Having Vincent Kompany in charge must be a huge draw for players potentially thinking about Burnley. But that is a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because he has been spoken about already with other football clubs. So is there an essence of waiting to see what happens with that when it comes to getting players in the door?
I think that would have started already, perhaps. I've got to be honest. I think that they will be looking and trying to identify players. I think what he has done, I think as a manager, where you get a little bit more credit with the hierarchy, because it is different these days. It isn't maybe a Neil Warnock scenario, who I'm sure we'll come on to later on the pod, who probably wants to have overall control of who comes in the door, all those nuts and bolts, where nowadays you'll have, a director of football, who probably will oversee that. But I think when you are the man, and I'm sure that Vincent Kompany very much has a say in who comes into that building, particularly when you see the likes, of Cullen coming over again from Belgium, Benson, like those players that he was obviously aware of from his time over there. And the vast majority have absolutely flown this season. So then you're going in as a manager going, look, come and back me. I've already got however many right. So I think he'll have a huge say. I think, as you said, the key thing is going to be, is he going to be there next year? I know it's a horrible thing, and Burnley fans probably won't thank me for saying it. One thing I will say about Vincent Kompany, he's so calm and composed and clear. I don't think he'll be in a rush to make that jump to the next step. It just depends whether there's an unbelievable job that comes out of nowhere that maybe he feels is impossible to turn down. But I think for him, it's more about development, working his way to that level. He's just turned 36. And I think that he sees Burnley
ancient.
Yeah, exactly. I think he sees Burnley as a project. So I'm sure that hopefully from their point of view, he can be a big part of their development and they can be a big part of his as well.
So that's Burnley then, home and hosed, and a massive congratulations to them. Second place, Sheffield United. They need 11 more points to get automatically promoted. 6 games to go, a game in hand over Luton and Borough, the 5 clear of third place. From what you saw on Monday, they've obviously got big games coming up both in the league and also that massive one against Manchester City in the Cup. Have they got enough to make sure they get over in second place?
Yeah, I would say so. They were obviously very unfortunate against Burnley in terms of the mix-up that led to Wes Foderingham getting sent off, and that clearly changed the whole complexion of the game. And I think everything they wanted to do in terms of go and put Burnley under pressure and make it a physical battle completely got taken away from them, due to the lack of players being able to do that. I do think they will get there. I had doubts and I was concerned about Sheffield United certainly a few weeks ago. They had a little bit of a stickier period. Middlesbrough were absolutely flying. It was always going to be a test for them to be able to maintain the form that they have shown under Michael Carrick for that length of time. That's what makes the Championship so difficult. I think the fact that they've fallen away slightly has probably been the biggest factor in that. But you have to give credit to Paul Heckingbottom. Again, we did the game up at Sunderland and, they looked a bit tired. They looked a bit leggy. They put so much into games in terms of energy and intensity. And I think it just caught up with them a little bit. The likes of Ollie Norwood, who's been fantastic this season. And again, as you do start getting a little bit older, there are little periods in the season when you need a little break, you need a little refresher. And I think what I have to give Paul Heckingbottom huge credit for is he recognised that, and it had been said for maybe 2 or 3 games and he went with the same players. And then, he had to make that decision, up at Sunderland and they were absolutely excellent. Tommy Doyle coming in, James McAtee, who really just, I think, breathed new life into certainly that midfield area. And And again, they've got back to having that energy and enthusiasm that we know is such a big part of why they've been so strong. So now they've refound that. I do fancy them to go on and get the points. I think you look at that little gap now, they've got an extra game in hand. It's 5 points already. I fancy them certainly to go and get the business done.
So that's the top two almost boxed off, but Luton in third, Borough, then you've got Millwall, Blackburn and Preston. All three of those are on 62. I mean, the job that Rob Edwards has done at Luton is we can't overemphasise just how good that is, given as well the kick in the teeth of the Watford. Well, it was a shambles, basically, wasn't it? Just over into double figures for games. Thank you very much, Rob. See you later. Given where they are, how he's kept that football club going as Nathan Jones moved on. I mean, surely we're looking at one of the managers of the season there.
Absolutely, and I think he's probably gone a little bit under the radar because we've got the likes of Vincent Kompany now in the Championship. We've got Michael Carrick, who are huge names from a playing career, but have done excellent jobs managerially as well. I think when you talk about Rob Edwards and the job he's done, the big difference I would see is a football club that is run exceptionally well, and certainly was done. It was a very tight ship under Nathan Jones, a very clear identity. You would talk about recruitment. He's been able to go out previously and identify the players that he wants to come and make that team better. There's a profile to what player comes in to fit the job description versus a Watford and Rob Edwards, have a job earlier in the season where it's the complete opposite end of the scale. You've got players coming in that he has absolutely no control over, and I think any manager has any control over. And it's a matter of, right, go on, get on with it. How do you impose your philosophy and your style of play, in that scenario, particularly when the players know you go on one bad run of results, you're going to be out the door as a gaffer as well. And I think that certainly is something that has hindered that football club. And listen, he clearly isn't the first and won't be the last. You got Slaven Bilic goes in there afterwards. And, again, it's like impossible, really, I would say, for that football club to have a sustained period of success with all that going on in the background. Chris Wilder's suffering it now. So, yeah, going back to Luton, I think it's all well and good having that framework to go in and work, but to actually recover from that disappointment at Watford and actually kick the team on, and the greatest respect to Nathan Jones and a fantastic job he did. I look at Luton now and they're a fantastic team. They've got a little bit of everything, still got that fight, that grit that we would associate with them under Nathan Jones. But I think they're playing a little bit more now, in the right areas. I think he's been really, really clever in trying to not change too much and actually working with the strengths of the team that they certainly have. And he's done an exceptional job. And, anytime you talk about Luton finishing anywhere near the playoffs, it's a great season. And the fact that we're actually talking about them to be the ones possibly to now push Sheffield United for even second, just emphasises what a brilliant job that he's done.
Borough, we've discussed very much in there as well. Millwall, Blackburn, as I said, Preston just out of the top 6 on goal difference. There was a late winner for them at Reading up at Deepdale. We've chatted about Preston. We've talked about perhaps the potential of where they could end up and the ambition of the football club with Peter Ridsdale and obviously Ryan Lowe at the helm. Are we seeing a late surge into the top 6 for them?
Well, we say it every season, don't we? There's always that one team that seems to come from nowhere. And I think certainly that's, again, the beauty of the Championship and the EFL. I think it's so competitive across the whole season that it gives teams an opportunity, if they can come and put a little run together towards the end of the season and just be there or thereabouts throughout the year. There's been grumbling, there's been murmurings, around that football club of, we should be in the playoffs. But when you look at their budget, you look at recruitment, and again, the job that Ryan Lowe's done there, is a magnificent job. And it's just, I think for him, been a matter of just keeping everybody level throughout the season and not panicking if they've been in 11th or 12th rather than 5th or 6th, and really just giving them that opportunity to get themselves on a run, which they've done. Certainly you look at form, you look at momentum, which again, two things we talk about so much at this stage of the season. They are the team with that certainly coming in. I think in terms of signings, Tom Cannon coming in was absolutely huge. I know that was a big area that he was looking to certainly improve on in the January transfer window. He's made a huge impact. And again, it just goes to show with the right recruitment that, you can really make that leap between being a mid-table team and one challenging for the playoffs. So I certainly see them as, coming on the rails. I think that Blackburn has been my worry all season, if I'm being honest, in terms of maybe whether they've got the depth, to go for the whole 46 games. And again, they're having a little bit of a wobble, and I think that certainly I could see Preston pipping them, but you've got Norwich queuing up behind them. Coventry's still very much in the mix. Sunderland, again, another manager who's had a brilliant season, Tony Mowbray, everything that he's had to face. So yeah, listen, what is for sure, the next 5 or 6 games are in for some real drama.
You mentioned him earlier on, and when we talk about the Championship, it's hard not to come back to Neil Warnock. In at Huddersfield, they drew with Blackburn on Easter Monday after leading up until the 91st, 92nd minute. But it's results over that weekend and off the back of the international break, they've got them up and out of the bottom 3. Just a couple of points, but out. Psychologically, how big is that for his survival bid with Huddersfield Town, Jobi?
Oh, it is absolutely magnificent in terms of what Neil Warnock has done. I've got to be honest, this was a club that was already down when he walked in there, and I questioned, is this one too many for him? Listen, we get to work with him. He comes on the show. And one thing I will say, and you see it in managers, I've played under managers still in the game, and there's that spark. They don't have it, whatever it is, whether it's the pressure, whether it's previous experiences, and that can go around a football club, and players definitely feel that. Whereas with Neil, like every time he comes in, he's still got that spark. He's got that enthusiasm for the game. You just have to sit there and talk football, which he obviously absolutely loves to do. And that enthusiasm absolutely rubs off on players. They've got a manager there who will be absolutely demanding everything of them, that every single player is buying into what he wants to do. Again, he has a work ethic that his team, you speak to any player that's played under, they love playing under Neil Warnock because of those demands that he puts on you, that team spirit that he seems to build. And again, we've seen at this level, if you have that, you look at the results they've had, and he said it when he came in, he's a very clever man as well. If you look at the result, the fixtures we've got, I'd be a madman to take the job, and almost teeing it up. They've beaten Millwall, who were one of the form teams, Middlesbrough, Watford, and again the other day, I think they
enjoyed those.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be disappointed, of course. Blackburn were excellent in the second half and deserved to certainly get themselves back on level pegging. But it's confidence. You can see it's night and day, that group of players. He's getting a lot more out. Josh Koroma, for example, he's been back involved and very much back to where he was a couple of years ago. So again, as a player, I think he's that type of manager that gives you the confidence to go out. And we get so bogged down with tactics and styles these days. Sometimes can you go and get that player to go and perform at his very best? And if you can do that, then you've got a chance of winning games. It's that simple sometimes.
2 of the last 3 are against Cardiff and Sheffield United. I mean, he'd have done well to avoid teams that he's managed in the Championship because he's been at the helm of quite a few of them. As we drop below the dotted line, Paul Ince has moved on from Reading. Mick McCarthy's moved on from Blackpool. Sean Maloney, of course, is the Wigan boss. 2 of those teams with points deductions. What's going on at Reading, Jobs? Any idea?
Oh man, how long we got? What's the pod like this week? I'll be honest, I'm absolutely gutted to see the plight that they're in, and have been for a little while now. Of course, last year with the points as well, and potentially talk of them getting more. They obviously struck this agreement to try and put forward together a business plan that they weren't able to adhere to this season. Which has obviously resulted in the other 6 points. But again, for me, with or without the 6 points, they've almost been sleepwalking into this situation. I don't think results have been good enough, even in the circumstances, and certainly performances. And I've seen Reading on a number of occasions this year, and it's what I'd call sort of hopeful football. There's been no real plan or clear way of playing other than, we're going to try and hit Andy Carroll and, almost be a team that tries to work off scraps, and they're far better than that. Perhaps they've got some real quality still in that squad, and I just don't think they've utilised it well enough. I think the change had to happen. I never ever like to see managers go, and I'm a big believer in giving managers time, but I think he has been given that time. Did a brilliant job last year coming in, galvanising the group, keeping them up.
Yeah,
fine. Is he the man, or was he the man to take that club forward? Clearly no, because results haven't been good enough this year. And yes, he might point to the points deduction in terms of where they are now. But certainly I don't think they've been good enough over the course of the season. I think Noel coming in, someone I know extremely well.
Have you spoken to him?
Yeah, I gave him a message yesterday. He said it's been an absolute whirlwind.
Just say good luck.
Whirlwind, yeah. What are you thinking? No,
Yeah.
but again, I obviously know really well, and it was just a little message to say good luck, and if he needs anything in terms of, bit of advice. I had a similar situation going in, probably not as drastic, but later on in the end of the season. And it's just about trying to get a bit of clarity in what you're trying to do. You want to make immediate impact and maximum impact. So it's really just trying to, I suppose, get away from, I probably didn't help him by messaging, probably had 1,000 text messages, and you feel like you have to get back to everyone when really you want to be focused on, right, what's my first meeting going to be like? How do I want to set the team up to go and win a game of football? I think his enthusiasm, his personality will be absolutely huge. He was a big player for us on the pitch, but also in and around the dressing room. Great character, really lively. He'll get that place bouncing. He'll get the confidence back in that group of players for sure. And again, it's just a group that's been absolutely devoid of it. And I think sometimes post-match, some of the interviews, and it's hard when you're not winning games, but players have been singled out a little bit. And you've got some young lads there, that come through the system that want to do well for the football club. And then you've got some other players who are only there because of the situation, the fact they couldn't sign anyone for any money. They've been under strict embargo. But then it's about characters for me. It's getting the right ones in. It's still a brilliant football club, new training ground, which is absolutely magnificent. And it is a great place to play when you can get it going. So my fingers are crossed. I do fear for them, given how late the points deduction has come. And obviously Noel going into a job, which is a difficult one. But I clearly wish him and the club the very, very best. And I really hope they can survive this season and really just get back on track to somewhere near a normal football club from next year.
So as you say, Jobs, big challenge for them, the bottom three, Reading, Blackpool and Wigan. Right, let's go into League One, which for the three in that bottom three, they're hoping that isn't the case coming into the season, of course. At the top, Sheffield Wednesday. Second, Plymouth Argyle. Top six, Ipswich, Barnsley, Peterborough, Bolton, Derby just outside on goal difference. Now, if you're a Wednesday fan, Good Friday wasn't a Good Friday because by the end of that day, you were then third. A win on Monday, which has been a very, very long time coming for Darren Moore on his side. Season back at the top of the league. Argyle in second, and as I said, Ipswich in third. Those two, though, have a game in hand on the Owls. The key thing that Darren seems to need to stress is that patience, putting it all in perspective. And it just goes to show over the matter of a weekend how emotionally draining it can be following teams that are trying to chase down the top of that division, because they're massive football clubs duking it out at the top, aren't they?
They are. And again, you probably know better than most, but I think that expectation there is absolutely the thing that is the most difficult to deal with. And even when they were on that brilliant run, I remember when we did Barnsley Sheffield Wednesday, and I was doing a bit of co-commentary, and you try and get as much information as you can, obviously speak to people around the football club and just get an idea of the vibe and the mood. And there was still this, I think it was a 23 match unbeaten run at that point, this sort of feeling of, we're going to mess it up still, and it like maybe not completely all in on Darren Moore.
Northern cynicism, mate. That's all that is.
Unbelievable to sort of get that feel from a club that was doing so well. And I think when you add in Plymouth and how well they've done, Ipswich, as you say, massive football club, in terms of their resources and budget, this year should be where they are for sure. It's such a tough league to get out of. We've said it all season long. I think it's been a fantastic league to follow and watch this year. And I think Sheffield Wednesday, that win, it has done absolutely wonders for them, because what you start getting is that noise getting louder and louder and louder. It starts filtering through the football club. It filters onto the terraces, and it can affect players. And I think certainly just to give them that little bit of breathing space, I think it's absolutely massive. I think for Darren Moore and the players, and listen, he's got huge experience. You saw the goal Barry Bannon scored doing typically Barry Bannon things against Oxford. It was a fantastic finish, and he's going to need more of that. This is where you need your leaders, you need your senior players to really step up and, control what you can, which is in and around that football club on a day-to-day basis, on a match day, and trust that you've got the quality, which they have shown over the course of the season, to go the course and get themselves up. I think what you have got is for me, two other teams, it would be 2 out of 3, who again have Ipswich looked like they were going to fall away. They've come back with a brilliant run themselves, and the job Kieran McKenna's doing there, again, outstanding. So listen, I hope you're not going to ask me to predict the top 2, because that is one league from the start of the
Joby,
season.
could you predict that? No.
That is, it is going to go down to the wire, man. I think you literally are going to be talking last day of the season, different permutations. This club needs this to go up. And, you know, it's what probably we all want to see, except if you are following Sheffield Wednesday, Plymouth or Ipswich.
The two teams that are in the Papa John's Trophy final, Plymouth Argyle and Bolton Wanderers. Have you seen Have you seen a hangover for Plymouth Argyle? Have you seen a boost for Bolton since that game?
Yeah, I think certainly you look at Plymouth and, you know, they were in big trouble, you know, away to Morecambe. Didn't play particularly well in that first half. Steve Schumacher making a couple of changes, which really paid off in the second half. And I felt like that would be a huge turning point for them mentally, more than anything, in terms of getting over. They probably did carry a bit of disappointment. You know, he clearly was absolutely on the floor, really, with the performance, really, you know, at Wembley. I think he was just disappointed. It just didn't turn up. But you maybe put that down to the Wembley factor. I think if that was a league game, I think it's a little bit different. But they certainly didn't handle the situation and the atmosphere well enough. You think, right, they're back on track, and then they go again, a real disappointing result against Lincoln, you know, where they've been so strong, particularly as well. I think that would be a disappointing one. So I think that would be a question for him to put back onto the squad. You know, have we got over it? You know, clearly in terms of performances, you would have to say it's still lingering about a little bit, even though they did get that win over Morecambe. And I think Bolton, again, for me, will be there. You know, I just think, again, another young up-and-coming manager who's done a brilliant job. But you look what's behind them, Derby, you know, Wickham always there or thereabouts, Portsmouth just hanging in there. Peterborough probably, again, that team that's really got that run together at the right time. So, again, I think a situation that will go right down to the end.
Attendances as well. I mean, Derby, as you quite rightly say, Joby, hot on the heels of Bolton. The sheer volume of fans that they're getting through the door at Pride Park. Same with Wednesday right at the top, and what Stephen Schumacher's done with the galvanisation of the fan base down at Plymouth has been wonderful. Ipswich, pack it out, Barnsley, Peterborough, all teams very worthy of where their spots are in League One at the moment. Down at the bottom, Forest Green propping up the division, 9 away from Morecambe, Cambridge above them, Accrington Stanley above them, Oxford, MK Dons, Burton above the dotted line. Talk us through Forest Green. I mean, and it's trying to talk about this without sounding condescending, because you know what Dale Vince is like. He's a very, very, very ambitious and successful man. So where he finds his side, he won't be happy with. But given the size of the club, who they're fighting with, all the teams that we've mentioned here at the top end of League One, it was always going to be a tough task, wasn't it? Given as well, the man that led them there, Rob Edwards, moved on very early on off the back of last season. And that continuity that, you know it yourself, having been in football management, that you'd like to impart and put in place, can quite quickly come apart, can't it, with regards to how you see the season going? What would you say would be Dale Vince's take on what he's seen from his side and his club this season?
Listen, I think ultimately, you know, he would want to have been more competitive than they have been. You know, I think you see how far adrift they are, you know, not just of safety, but, you know, the next team above them in Morecambe. But at the same time, I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head when you lose your manager, who was so instrumental in what they did, but not just the manager. They lost key players as well. Nicky Cadden, you know, was so instrumental, and you're losing your best players as well. It's not just, you know, one or two that you think you can do without. They were players that were absolutely fundamental to what they did, certainly in terms of getting promotions. I think he clearly is a very intelligent man, very switched on. I think he would have seen it would have been a struggle this year early on. I think that you saw how maybe that Rob Edwards situation was handled. He clearly wasn't happy with that. And I think from there, they've really been chasing their tail a little bit, trying to get themselves to a point where they've got a bit of stability. And I think that's been difficult for them. So listen, I think what I will say about Forest Green, and I'm a huge advocate of football clubs that are run really well and sustainably. I think there's so many clubs that aren't. And sometimes it's part of the process, of going up and having to come back down, but learning those lessons. I'm sure he would have taken so much
Almost like
from.
growing pains, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
Mm.
and what they didn't do well enough this year. What they feel they can improve on, and there will be some things that he will be absolutely happy with. They have competed at times, but sometimes there is just that golfing quality, and I think they've suffered from that this season for sure.
Top of League Two, Orient, 8 clear, needs 6 points from 6 games. That must make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside.
Yes, again, another one of my former clubs that, when you have spent as much
There's
time
loads of them.
as you, there's a few, but there's a couple that I spent more time than others. And I think when you leave, certainly there are clubs you look at and you want to do well. And, certainly for me, Leyton Orient, it's been a matter of time. Again, I talk about good owners, which seem few and far between in the game at times from some of the stories you hear, but certainly at that football club, that cannot be said. Nigel Travis and Kent Teague and the rest of the ownership group there, genuine love and passion for that football club. And again, that filters through, down to us as players, down to coaches, management team and staff. I think going to get Richie Wellens last year, clearly the Kenny Jackett appointment didn't go to plan. But they've got everything in place, and they had a plan when they first came in. And I remember, they were very clear on that in terms of we want to get back to League One within 6 seasons, and to go in and say that after everything that had happened to that football club, 2 relegations in 3 years, going out of the Football League for the first time. We got ourselves back up, and then you have the incident, of course, tragic incident with Justin that sort of derailed everything, and any bit of momentum that we had was lost. It was a matter of real stabilization. But yeah, I think what Richie's done is, again, just revitalized everyone at that football club. He had a bit of time off the back of last year to come in and really set out his way of playing, the way that he wanted to do things. I remember coming up against his Swindon team when I was at Orient. They were magnificent the year they got promoted, and he's gone and done something very similar there. Lawrence Figueroa in goal, outstanding, clean sheets for fun this year, along with the rest of that back four. Omar Beckles coming in has been brilliant, shown real great leadership qualities, and again, good signings. El Mazuni's come in, and they've got great options in forward areas. So they just want to be getting it done now. Again, you talk about pessimism around football clubs. Orient are as bad as anyone, and I went back there. I think they had a 14-point gap between them and fourth the time I went back, something along. And it was sort of like, oh, we haven't won for 3 games. I'm like, listen, everything you guys have been through, just enjoy. These are the times as fans that you got to just, enjoy these moments. So I'll certainly be hoping to get back there at some point between now and the end of the season and enjoy those good times, because they've certainly had enough bad ones in recent years, Orient, and they fully deserve it.
Amen to that. Second place, Northampton. John Brady, of course, manager of the month. I mean, given what he's had to deal with injuries-wise over the last 3 months, it's a phenomenal achievement. Stockport in third. National League champions, of course, now third in the division above. Dave Challoner in charge, he of the monstrously long throw. Perhaps an example there to, without naming names, some very big clubs that aren't in the league as yet of how to approach the next level of football, especially, as you said, clubs that are well run with pretty hefty finances. Would I be right in saying that with regards to someone like a Stockport County, Jobi?
Yeah, I think so. But again, when you then get into the EFL, you have to fall into line and do things the right way, which clearly they have been doing. And it isn't just about throwing loads of money at it. I think we've seen clubs in the past that probably try that, even down in the National League where, I spent a couple of years, and you see some brilliant players, and a lot of it is because you can probably dip down there and maybe get, better wages than you might be at some League Two clubs. And I think for certain players at certain periods of their career, as they're getting on, that might take precedence, and I think I've seen clubs like that, but they don't have that togetherness. They don't have that team spirit. 1, in order to get promoted in the first place, but 2, to sustain it when they do get promoted. So you have to give Dave Challoner and everybody at that football credit for not just, again, getting themselves into League Two, but also going and saying that we want to really go and attack it. I think that is something we have seen over the years. I think if you approach it in the right way and you recruit well, there's no reason why you can't come up. But still, again, when you look around it and some of the other teams that are around there, for them to be where they are. And again, they've come in good at just the right time at this stage of the season. The 3 automatic spots in that league, again, gives you that little bit more chance than you do have, further up the pyramid. And certainly, they'll be looking at that. And that would be an incredible achievement, to come up. And they were pre-season favourites. I got to be honest, I didn't see it. I think it's always a little bit a case of coming up and stabilising and establishing yourself in the league. But they've clearly ripped that apart and looking like, they are the team that might nip into that 3rd place and still could even get even higher.
Those playoff places occupied by Carlisle, Stevenage, Bradford and Salford, as you've already mentioned. Perhaps Richie Wellings looking down from the summit down towards Salford there with a little smile to himself. Anyway, down at the bottom, Harrogate and Hartlepool both once again fighting it out down there. Bottom 2, Crawley, Rochdale, rock bottom of the pyramid. They got rid of Jim Bentley, of course, Jim McNulty in for the interim. Looking pretty ominous for a team such as Rochdale, which, again, your experience of EFL football, Jobi, and chuck mine into that as well. Rochdale always a team that was part of the mindset of the Football League, akin to a Scunthorpe, if you like. And there's not a straight line between the two, but it just goes to show that when times are tough, it can take down any team. No team's safe from falling through that trapdoor, is it?
No, not at all. And I think when you look at, I suppose, the strength underneath that now, which is probably the big challenge to some of those clubs that have been sort of knocking around in League Two for a little while. There always is that unfortunate one season possibly. And you look at Scunthorpe, and that wasn't one season. That was, years and years of,
year on year
was coming, and again, you look at them now, and that can happen, very, very quickly. And I think that's something that is going to be a concern for Rochdale. For me, looking incredibly ominous, as you say, in terms of the position they find themselves in, 6 points from safety. I think you couple that with Hartlepool's remarkable turnaround and Dan Kemp, who I know very, very well from my time at Leyton Orient, fantastic young player, but the impact that he's been able to go and make. And sometimes it is about that. It's one player coming in, and listen, the rest of the lads have done a great job as well, but just giving that group that spark, that bit of life. And I think certainly looking at Hartlepool and the form they've been on, they look like they could just inch their way out of it and get to safety. And again, Harrogate, another club who I came across, during my time in the National League, really well run. Again, really overachieving in terms of the last couple of years, what they've done, in League Two. And they're just on that bubble as well. But yeah, I'd certainly say at the moment it's looking like Rochdale, and then everything that's happened at Crawley Football Club's made it really difficult for them as well. But yeah.
Kind of the opposite of what you were saying about clubs and how they run and the way to go about it, shall we say?
Yeah, I think so, because in those difficult times, and all clubs do go through them, you need something to hold on to, whether that is an identity, whether that's a connection with the fans to help you get through those rough moments. It might be, a manager that, you have faith in, that you're going to trust to try and get you out of that situation. Whereas, again, you look at Crawley and the way everything's going there, it isn't rocket science. Perhaps it really isn't. And there's a way to run football clubs, and there's a way not to run football clubs. And more times than not, the ones that aren't run very well get themselves into trouble.
I think it's safe to say, and hopefully all the listeners would agree with this, expertly mopped up Jobi McAnuff, the mopper.
You started off the pod being really nice, and now that is like, I don't know, the worst.
I can't do it for too long.
Yeah, I know, it's fine.
Yeah, I know, I can't do it for too long. My very small brain likes to make digs at people that I feel very inferior to, and I'm in horror of. But you've enjoyed your weekend up north. You're back down south where you think all the normal people are. That's what you said to me before you came on?
No, not for long. I'm back up to Middlesbrough Friday, so I can't wait for that. I think I'm going to go and rent a place up there for the run-in, because obviously it's
definitely
I've got a few teams up there. Maybe someone might be offering me a room at some point. I'm not sure. It would be nice.
Yeah, well, I'll ask around. I mean, I don't quite know if anyone can take that on board with you, especially. But don't worry, I'll put in a not a good word, just a word in for you. But Jobi, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Go off and enjoy the kids for the rest of the holidays, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you very much.
One of the good guys there, Jobi McAnuff, our resident EFL expert. That's about it for this episode. A big thank you to Jobi, Nick Craig, and Jack Cork for joining me this week on the official EFL podcast. As always, if you've enjoyed it, then please do give us a 5-star rating, press the follow button, and share on all of your socials. If you'd like to get in touch, our email address is podcast@efl.com. That's podcast@efl.com. My name's David Prutton. Thanks very much for your company, and Clem will be back same time next week for another episode of
The official EFL podcast.